a Community Preservation Committee meeting on April 1st at 7:30. My name is Ann Mazar and I'm the chair of the committee. Why don't we go around? Dan?
Yeah, Dan Meyer, Parks and Recreation.
Barry Admiral, Planning Board.
Mike Amanda, Conservation Commission.
Mike Goddard, Select Board.
And Jay, you want to introduce yourself? Can you hear me?
After I am you. So Jay Beyer, I'm the Director of Finance for the Mendon School District.
All right. Why don't we jump to your warrant article, which is
Okay, yeah, I mean, if I don't have to stay all night, you know, you're doing me a favor, that's for sure. I only got 3 meetings this week, so.
So would you want to explain what the request is for the Community Preservation Committee?
Well, so you're basically looking at the field piece for this, not the rest of the capital projects, correct? I mean, you don't need an overview of everything.
No, just the
Okay.
fields.
So the field projects that we have involve doing a substantial amount of work at the high school. The main focus of that is to take the main field, which is the football soccer field that's right up by Pleasant Street. They're going to reorient that a little bit, install a track because we don't right now have a competitive track that we can use at the school for our track team. Put in some new bleachers. It does include a turf surface as opposed to a grass surface. In addition to that, we want to go out to the backfield where the baseball field is and do some work out there. We need to reorient the softball field, which currently, the way it's angled, you've got about 160-foot left field fence, which is really short. And on top of that, the sun is in everybody's eyes. So they want to turn that so it faces the different direction and make it more proportional. We need to get an irrigation system put in out there. The one that is there was put in when the school was built, and for reasons I don't know, the irrigation piping is about 18 to 20 inches below grade, so you can't really get in there to fix it. It doesn't work anymore. We do have a well that we put in about a year ago, so that part doesn't need to be done anymore. They also want to put a walking path around the entire complex of the school so that you can sort of see, it's a place for parents to walk around. We need to make the backfield, which I believe is field hockey and lacrosse, that one, you can't get to it without going through this path that kind of turns into a river. So we need to pave that and make it ADA compliant so you can get out there. They want to put lights on the front field. So that's the main focus at the high school. At the middle school, the field's there. The back football field and soccer field is actually probably the best field we have in the district right now. The field you're looking at in these pictures is the baseball and softball field, and that field has just been really tough for many, many years. I guess about 20 or 25 years ago, somebody came in with like a steamroller, a big, 10-ton steamroller and rolled it to try and level it. The result was that it's so compacted now that it's hard as a rock. So in that field there, we're looking at regrading it, trying to get an irrigation system in there. We do have a state earmark for some of the irrigation, but it probably won't cover the entire field. Try and level it all out and seed it, loam it, and get it back to where it's a decent field. Try and get the weeds out of there. So that's the main scope of all of it. There's, a lot more specifics, and we don't have all of the specifics there, but there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the fields just, over the years, they have deteriorated. There was never irrigation at Misco. One of the issues we had at Nipmuc is that we did have irrigation systems, but the wells that they put in when they built the school were 12-foot bedrock wells. They were not deep wells. So if it doesn't rain enough, there's no water at all. So the goal was we do have a well in now that's about, I don't know how far they went down, probably about 600 feet. So we've got, adequate supply for irrigation and all this stuff. So that's the scope of it. I mean, I can answer more specific questions if there are some, but that's the main gist of it. It's just an overall renovation of all of the fields. My understanding is CPC cannot fund any of the turf surface, but most of the other infrastructure stuff they can fund. And both towns have told us that they would like to use CPA funds to offset some of the debt as we go through the process once it's all complete. Part of this field at the high school is we need to build a retaining wall so that Pleasant Street stays up on Pleasant Street. Right now, it's just kind of a sloped hill, but the bleachers would all go on that side instead of where they are now. So a retaining wall has to be built, and that's going to add about $800,000 to the cost. So you've got the cost estimates there, I believe, on our website. I I hope. And if not, I think you have them.
So the total's 12 million then for that, all that?
Total for all of it is about 12 million, correct? That is the total amount we would have to borrow or get authorization to borrow. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what it's going to cost. It also, if any of the debt was offset with CPA funds, that would reduce the taxpayer impact. They are looking to get some donations for some of the stuff at the high school, but it's hard to fundraise until you actually have an approved project. So, and unfortunately, you know, the way it works when you're doing municipal borrowing is you have to borrow or get authorization to borrow for the full amount.
So, I mean, what I would think, and probably be just like other projects where we use CPA funds to offset that obligation on an annual basis, something like that. One of the questions I had, I wasn't sure if you look at these line item details, how much is, you know, if you look at a total, so FY26, there's probably very little borrowing, Jay, is that fair? I mean, I don't think we're gonna have a payment in 26 per se, but we're gonna get the project started if it's approved, is that fair?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a lot. The way we would do this, the way we've done our projects in the past is we use short-term, you know, bond anticipation notes, which are interest-only loans, and that gets you through the construction phase so you can pay your bills. Then once you're all done and you know what it really costs, that's when you go out and borrow the full amount. We will have, you know, if these were to get approved, this and its other two projects, or any of the any combination, whatever potentially gets approved, we will then probably have to revise. We have to amend our budget usually every year in July or August because the state doesn't give us our final budget until July or August. When we do that, if there is any kind of assessment, it would come at that point and would have to be voted on at the fall special town meeting. And both towns have told me that they would wait to set their tax rates until after the fall town meetings in case there is some. But I don't expect it to be a lot because most of the work for all the projects won't really start till FY20, you know, until 2026. They do think if the fields were approved that they could actually start that in October or November and have it so that it's ready for the following fall for school. But that's, you know, we still have to get through a long process. Construction documents have to be drawn. You got to put it out to bid. There's a lot of work ahead of that. So I don't know if that can happen or not.
I mean, there's a lot of unknown specifics that tonight. So what I almost want to say in general, does the committee want to support use of CPA funds for this work? I'm not saying how much, just saying in general, right? We probably need to identify which of these line items that are on the screen we think are eligible, right? And remember, this is probably for the allocation, Jay, I know it's not as simple as 50-50, but at minimum, this cost is split with Upton, right? When you look at the numbers.
Yes. Yeah, the way our regional agreement requires us is we're supposed to look at every single, what the debt is going toward, and then you have to split it by the enrollment of each town in the facility where the debt applies. So in this case, you're dealing with Misco and Nipmuc, and we'd have to come up with, it's a formula that we'll have to, you know, develop so that whatever the town's enrollment is at Nipmuc, right now the split is about 57-42%. I'm not sure about Nipmuc specifically, but the district as a whole, but let's use 55-45 for easy numbers. The debt service then gets split that way.
So we can specifically look at a number here to say that's what we know, which we don't know, or from a CPA perspective, we can also look at and say how much is this committee willing to allocate up to on an annual basis to cover debt obligations, right? So we can get I can get a ballpark based on these estimates of how much in gross is eligible for CPA. You could say, you know, Jay and I talked, I looked at this, I didn't know what's eligible. I said, well, I can see like Misco looks eligible at 859,000 at 100%. All field really rebuilds. It's on the softball fields that's been cemented down. That's potentially eligible. I'm not sure how much of the high school projects are or not, but I mean, Jay, you kind of looked at it and said, and Dan, I don't know if you looked at this closely.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so in terms of turf, from what I've been reading, a literal interpretation of the law is that the only thing we cannot do is buy the turf.
Which is $1 million.
We could pay for the labor, we could pay for installing the turf, we just cannot buy that roll of turf or however it comes. I don't know, and I'd be curious to know what Upton's perspective is, and you know, that's something this commission should discuss how they want to interpret that.
So potentially of this 12 million, basically, you potentially could say almost 9 million of it could be CPA eligible.
Like if it's, you know, that, right, well, I'm thinking, just looking at the line for turf, the 1.1 million.
Well, that's out.
But I'm, you know, if half of that's labor, we technically might be able to pay for that labor.
Right.
If that was, you know,
Oh, yeah, I see the labor.
and then the other one, just real quick, that sticks out to me is the concession building. We might want to, I think, there's limits of what we can, like, we can pay for things that are part of, but I think there's some prohibitions on stadiums.
When I look, my point, when I look at this, it's gray,
Yeah,
right? What we do know, and have a better sense of it, is what is our annual income and from a CPA perspective, is there a certain average state match, right?
Mhm.
So if we were to say, if we're gonna take in, say,
number.
we'll just say $300,000 a year. I'm not sure I wanna allocate 100% of $300,000 to this one project, right? So the other way we can go is look at this and say, what are we willing to allocate to support as a general number? And we could maybe at the town meeting say, the motion would be to vote to approve an allocation of, say, $300,000, that's the number, $300,000 annually in support of the MURC field construction project.
Would you be better off doing a percentage of the amount that we take in a year rather than a dollar amount? Because you don't know how much you can get from year to year.
Yeah, you could, and I think, and that number's gonna change based on how the school chooses to borrow. So 26 will probably have 0, 27 might have, you know, initiate a 20-year, you know, debt obligation of X dollars, where what we're saying is for 20 years, we're willing to allocate 10, 15% of CPA revenues to, you know what I mean?
I don't think we can really do a percentage. I think it's more a dollar amount that we would be able to commit each year.
But the idea, do you think, given what we know now with the town meeting, do we want to put forth a motion in support of the project, CPA funds to offset the debt, you know, cover some of the debt obligation, whether it be a percentage or dollar amount?
Yeah.
And that way, every year we have to vote it based on the details we get specifically to what the projects do. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, well, like for the police, every year give like 130,000 for the project, and that's, you know, for many more years.
Mhm.
So, but, and it changes it.
But there's a document that has every year what that number is, that's set in
Right.
stone, that was all
Right.
done.
And so that wouldn't happen with this project where.
Well, not for May, but that will happen when, I mean, Jay, I would say a debt payment schedule will be solidified once you actually get into, go beyond the short-term borrowing into long-term borrowing costs, where you can actually give us a fixed number like you did for the roofs.
Right. The one thing I can tell you though, because I've kind of created a tax calculator and looked at various things, and I've put in, you know, all the things that you need to put in, including interest and everything. It looks like approximate, no, don't hold me to like, this is what you said and it's $20 less, but it looks like the debt for this is about $383,000 a year that Mendon would be assessed based on current enrollment numbers. If you said, you know, 75% of that is eligible for CPA, that's about $288,000. So those are like just some soft numbers of kind of what we're looking at for the debt on something like this, on this, just on the fields piece.
So I just looked at the website, so starting from 24, going back, our total revenue was like 671, 796, 793, 619, 5, so we're 500, you know, those sevens are probably high, you know, 500, 600,000.
And we currently have some
And our one
obligations.
obligation is the police, it's like 100,000 a year, that's it. Everything else is paid off, there's no, it's just one-time stuff,
That's right.
just so we know where we
So
stand.
you get approximately 400,000.
Of which 10% is gonna go to other bucket, right? And so it's close to 400, but some.
That's true, so of that total number, then we can only spend, what is it, 65% plus 10%, so it's only 75% of that number could go towards this, because the other stuff has to go to housing and historic.
I mean, my feeling, I'd wanna make a dent, but I also understand that you've got other
Yeah.
current and future obligations for this funding too, so it can't be 100% for sure.
Now, I wouldn't want to tie up $300,000 a year, you know,
No.
for 20 years. I mean, I think we can put some money towards it, and then I'm sure, you know, Upton will too probably, but
I think we should circle back that with Upton after this. If we get to a point where we say we're comfortable with the 150 a year, I don't, that's a number this year, you know. We do need to bring a number, or we pass over until special, you know, fall town meeting to actually authorize this.
I think you go a long way towards this passing
Passing,
if
right.
there's.
I would prefer to have something, in like an up to type of figure.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily committing to
So when you're
100%.
talking those kind of numbers, what's the length of term?
Yeah.
20 year. It would be a 20-year debt, I'm pretty sure.
Well, is-
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, because that would be,
Enhanced.
that'd be almost $300,000 that we would have
When is police
You know,
paid off?
obligated, huh?
When is police paid off?
We get a
Or like
dip
year 3 or something.
31. 31, you see another dip drop.
So
I'm sure
$5
that's,
yeah.
please.
And then the other, you mentioned already, I had mentioned this to my father, if possible, it would be nice if we could have a unified approach with Upton, that both towns come up with the same process of how to break everything out and agree upon everything, that would be
Yeah, I think we
ideal.
need to have a common
Whatever that
understanding
is.
of what is, how much is eligible, right?
Yeah,
So we're not saying two different stories, that's just gonna lose credibility, but then also, you know, if they're, that's their call, I'm not gonna tell them not to put more to it, I think we just need to figure out how much we think is reasonable to commit for a 20-year term.
well, if both towns agreed upon what is eligible, what isn't eligible, and then both towns could say, we're gonna fund 100% of what's eligible, 50% of what's eligible, that could be a town decision. But then at least it's very
That's what I'm saying,
transparent, yeah.
for this committee now is knowing what we've got commitments to the police station, otherwise we only have commitments to buckets of 10% each.
I mean,
Yeah,
From-
33 is when we, is our last payment for police.
from parks, I think I did try and reach out to find out about what other needs are out there. I think, we could be looking to try and do a field in the future. I don't think that precludes us from doing this. My only concern is that I would hope that there's some amount of this that's also available to the community, that this doesn't just, it sounds like it'll do its work on this one, which I didn't know, but I thought this was just the turfs. So I think that's a much wider scope.
Is that, can they still be used by the community?
That was what I raised last night. We had a building committee meeting and I told them that one of the things that I hear every now and then is that this is great. We'll build this beautiful field at the high school and then nobody will ever touch it. And they assured me that as long as it doesn't conflict with high school games, that they want to make this available for all the youth groups and everybody else. They also want to try to lease the field out or loan it out, to get some revenue in, which will help provide maintenance money for some of the other fields. Because you got to remember, one turf field requires less maintenance, but we still have all the other fields. So there's still a lot of things that have to get taken care of. So the goal here is to, yes, make it available as much as possible to the community. I mean, the fields are already overused. One of the issues we have with the fields is that they're used so much that, when you have a grass field, you really need to take it offline for a year or so every now and then and give it a chance to rest. And we don't have that opportunity, just like the town doesn't, because there's so much demand for them. So that is the goal. The other thing I wanted to throw out there, I'm looking at these numbers when I look at them. And if CPA were to say in each town, well, we'll offset the debt for each town by, say, $100,000 a year, which would reduce the taxpayer burden by anywhere from, $60 to $80 a year on their tax hit, that would be fine. And then if it turns out in some future year, CPA's money is needed for something else, you don't have to appropriate it to offset the debt because you do have the ability to levy it outside the levy to get the money to pay the debt. So there is some flexibility. I mean, it's nice to have a commitment, but you should provide yourselves with flexibility for the fact that you have other needs in town as well.
I would think that what we do in May is, it's a commitment to the spirit of the objective. But every year we want to reallocate this, because we're going to get new dollars from Jay potentially on, maybe I don't think it'll change that much, Jay, but based on allocation, based on the borrowing, things like that, it may fluctuate a little, which is why I kind of want to go up to. We may not always be committing 100,000, because we may not.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Well, that too. We can always.
So
Change.
not that I believe this, but we could, if this committee said we don't want to fund the police station debt next year, that's a decision we can make, we're not locked into that. Because I kind of assumed that we were stuck.
We vote the police debt every year, don't we?
We do, but it's sort of, I think it's in the
Like, if we,
consent.
like, if this,
calendar.
like, would they, the town would
Right.
have to make it up, I guess? I'm just curious, I didn't know that.
We could take it out of the consent calendar if we need to. But my point is, I don't think we're locked in for.
That's right, that's the
either.
question, so we can, like, we're not stuck paying that.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable having a dollar amount or up to dollar amount and having it parallel what Upton is doing. So that, you know, and I think it would be helpful at the town meeting to have an amount so people can see that each town is, you know, helping to support that part of the project. That would help it pass.
Upton is their CPA committee is meeting, I believe, next Tuesday night. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend that, but I think somebody from the building committee will. I'm not sure who, but that, you know, just so you kind of know what their schedule is as well.
Just reach out to them. Do you know their
Yeah,
chair?
do you know what the chair is?
Now,
Yeah, I can reach out to them and find out what they're doing, you know,
Be interesting to see how they approach a project like this too, just.
right?
I know in my discussions with them that with the town administrator over there, they've gone back and forth. Initially, they were thinking, well, why don't we provide, you know, a lump sum up front so we don't have to borrow so much. Personally, I wouldn't advise that. I think you're better off offsetting the debt as time goes on than trying to pay a big lump sum ahead of time. But I think they're on board with that now. I know that Jeremy and Joe Layden, who's the town manager in Upton, have had conversations, and Jeremy's kind of been advocating for, you know, annual offsets to the debt service as opposed to like a lump sum up front.
Yeah,
I
sounds
didn't,
good.
I didn't see how lump sum would make sense.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And,
Agree.
you know, ultimately, you know, we have a $12 million price on this now, which is what we're going to need to get approval for. My goal is that it's going to come in at less than that. I mean, we've built in enough contingencies and enough things in it that I think we can come in under bid. But again, Mike's looking at me like, yeah, that doesn't always work. I can see it on his face.
Get to see it.
I was looking at the floor, I'm like, Mike, who?
No, Mike at the back there, he's got to look like, yeah, I don't, you know, I'm a contractor. We try to do everything we can to get as much as we can.
Well, again, nobody's got a crystal ball.
Right, exactly. You know, I've used 4% as my interest rate, which is about what things are going out to bid for now. But who knows what it'll be when we actually have to borrow, which will be at least a year from now.
Can I ask a different question? Like, what else from this committee, what else do we see coming that could get us into more debt? You know, potentially our own field, is there anything with housing that would require debt, or are that more one-time investments?
You mean like affordable housing?
Yeah,
You from this committee or from the film town in general?
well, for things that CPA could be asked to fund in this manner, like, are we gonna be, you know, another police station, another.
So see 20 years out.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like in the next few years, because I'm comfortable with 100 to 200,000, you know, I wouldn't want to lock up all of
That's
our
like
revenue.
150.
But I think this is you know, the money's there, we should spend this money if we can offset tax burden and, you know, put this money to use for what it's meant to be used for, but also not stop us if something comes in the future, we have to buy a parcel.
I'd want to do it too, because I mean, the senior center's coming back, and that really didn't have a lot of CPA opportunity.
No,
So we can lower the tax burden through this project using CPA to benefit the senior center longer term when it comes back. The more we can flatten that debt obligation long term and reduce it, the more opportunity we have to kind of slot projects in.
so we'll have to vote on this at another meeting, I think, or, yeah, because we need to talk to the CPA, the Upton CPA, and, but I think is everyone pretty much
Well,
in support of this? or-
Personally, I'd like to see some figures a little bit harder than we think it could be 12 million. Yeah, I'm all for taking care of the fields, having decent fields, but I'm certainly not gonna go along with something just on, I think it's, you know, we need some figures.
Well, so Mike, these figures were put together by Habib and Associates, which is our design team. The people that put the turf complex ideas together had it evaluated by someone else and has now since been evaluated by Beals and Thomas, I believe is the name of the landscape company. They've all vetted all of these cost estimates, but as you know, we don't do construction documents till you have an approved project, because you don't want to spend money on the construction documents till you know that you have the approval to actually go forward with the project. So this is basically schematic designs, and they were put together not by me just making up numbers. They were done by professionals that are in the business of landscape construction and field construction.
Are the details available on the Capitol website I was on, or are they available for Mike to take a look at? I mean, you're looking for something similar to the senior center, that level of detail.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what they have. I just don't know if it's there. But the other thing I'd say, Mike, is this, is the 12 million, to your point, if I'm gonna vote to say, let's do the project, I'm with you. But I do know that it's gonna be somewhere between 8 and 14 million, of which, if it were to be approved, this is a conditional on this committee's part to say, if it were approved, that doesn't necessarily change how much we're willing to allocate CPA towards. So that 100, 150 number, Dan said 200, that number would still hold regardless if it's 8 million or 14 million, right? Do you agree?
I believe so,
No, but I don't know if the project's going ahead until we see the details.
but I'm also looking at it not from my CPA hat,
Yeah.
finance committee hat.
That's a different meeting, Mike.
I know, but I feel fortunate I'm getting the inside scoop.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't forget, the other thing though is the school district is coming with 3 separate capital projects. It would be great if they all got approved, but I don't know what the chances are of 3 projects getting approved. Number 1 for us is the roof project at Nipmuc, similar to what we did for BVT a year ago. We got to replace the roof, and that's kind of that one I think is probably the easiest of the 2. But we also have a lot of building issues that we're looking to address in addition to the field. So we've got 3 things coming.
Yeah, you gotta present it to the voters. What's your
Yep.
priority?
Yeah, I know. We got
Right
one.
off the bat, you saying that right there, immediately I'm thinking, well, the roof is number 1 priority, and the building is the next priority, so the fields are gonna take a back seat to the roof and the building.
Well, they're all important in our mind because they all impact.
I'm not saying
students.
it's,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, I'm saying priorities.
We're not really saying.
CPA involved in the building.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't even be discussing.
But he's got to take his FinCom hat off.
We're not here for FinCom.
A whole other discussion. But I guess to Ann's question too, are we all in general agreement that we're allocating
Something,
Yes.
something.
do we have a sense, regardless of the total cost of the project, based on what we know CPA revenues to be, do we have a sense of ballpark? So Anna, I'm thinking we should probably have a ballpark if you're gonna talk to Upton,
Right.
what we're willing to allocate for debt cut.
That's hard,
Yeah.
because you're already at 130,000 over there.
Right.
And you can't say we're not gonna get it.
Right, for 5 years.
Well, 8 years.
8 years?
Mhm.
Oh, it's 30, I thought it was 31.
33.
Some drops at 30, 31. We get this. Okay, so you're averaging, say, 600 on the income side annually?
Yeah, if the state,
If that continues.
Well, just, what's our surcharge?
3%.
No, but it's like, it's probably in.
The percent match is going down though.
No, so just basis on what our we know our
Oh,
surcharge.
just that amount, I got you. That number is 350, 390, 419, 450, 470, so 400,000.
400,000, of which 25% is allocated to the police station.
That's what I was thinking of percentage.
And of that 400, you could argue that
the percentage is
only
hard.
75% of it is available for this project. If you get side
Take
of
the
10%, the 65 of the 10.
Yep.
That's 300,000. So if we were to allocate 150 or 200,000, that would leave us with only 100,000 to play with.
Yeah, 200 sounds like too much to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
The state match is all over the place. So, it's down to 38% from 95% 3 years ago. So I'm sure it's only going to drop as.
right.
It's
like
not
the
going
budget.
up.
No, not right now.
It's certainly not going up, and the way the country is going right now, there's no telling
That was my thought.
what the state's gonna do.
even before all this, it was challenged.
Right. So, again,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd get more money if there was a budget surplus, and I
right,
don't think.
I don't foresee a budget surplus in the state coming
I
up.
see education costs and other costs.
So would we say a minimum of 100? Because I think anything less than 6 figures probably is, I don't think that has the same impact. Maximum of 150, and we figure out what your Upton's plan, we see what that makes sense. So you go
I
for the
wouldn't
range.
be
for
willing to go
discussion.
for any more than what the police station's getting right now.
Okay,
I wouldn't be comfortable with that at all.
Mhm.
so a minimum of 100.
Because we're looking eventually for a fire station. We're still talking senior center, if that ever passes. I don't want to spread us too thin.
What do you think, Mike?
I'd say no more than 100.
Yeah.
At least 100. I wouldn't go as high as 150,
Mhm.
maybe 100, 125.
That sounds like a
Dan?
range.
I'm fine with that. I'd be fine with 150. I think we need more numbers before we can iron something out. But I do think by the time of being at town meeting, we should have some sort of a number.
So-
So people will get all flipped out if we don't have numbers.
I think there's gonna be an up to, no more than,
Yeah,
you know.
Not to exceed.
Right, so.
That's even better English. It sounds more official.
That's what being a contractor is, right? You write the contracts. People are bitching about the price.
So, okay, so between 100,000 and 125,000, is what I'm saying.
Not to exceed 100.
I see, okay. And Kathy, you're on here. How are you doing with this? I think you are. Yeah, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everyone.
Okay,
100, 125.
all right. All right, Jay, so we'll be back in touch when we have more concrete numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're looking, if both towns commit to a certain amount, I think that would, certainly one town shouldn't be doing more than the other. And I have an agreement with all of you. I don't want you to deplete your funds that you have for other needs in town for something like this. First, we got to get the project approved, so that's our goal. But if we get approved, if there's anything that can come that can offset the tax hit, all of that's a benefit.
Yeah, and I think it is beneficial if the CPAs of each town are putting money towards it, because it shows that it's something that's needed. And
Yeah, I mean, we have a need for more fields. I hear it a lot, on the school side as well, but, Daniel tells me all the time about the lack of field space, and I hear it in Upton too. We've got more fields than they do. But the programs are growing. You got to have a place to play.
I will say, so this includes work on MISCO, so that, I know that's used very heavily by the youth sports in the off season, so that's much more than just a turf field.
The backfields are used all the time for soccer and lacrosse.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the fields at NISCO are really the side fields, baseball, softball, and then in between the two fields is where I think field hockey plays in the fall. And that's the field that's really probably in the worst shape of all. There's no irrigation. The leach field is underneath there for the school. And it's hard as a rock. I mean, anybody that played baseball out there took a baseball in the face many times. So, right, Daniel?
That's all that. That's why.
all right, so I think we're all set on this then.
Okay. And you don't need me for anything else then, right?
No, thank you for coming and answering questions, explaining the project.
Yeah. And if there's any other questions, feel free to ask. I'm easy to find. And otherwise, it was great seeing y'all.
Sounds good.
Night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Jay.
Yeah, have a good one. Nice to see you, Mike.
Good,
It's been a
Jay.
while.
So we're gonna have to meet before the town meeting at some point, to vote on this. Because I hate to do the vote like right on before the town meeting, you know what I mean? I mean, we could do that,
This is coming up in May.
but, yeah,
One second.
yeah.
I know for me,
Today's April 1st.
I'm not gonna have a lot of time.
The meeting was May 10th.
At the town meeting, I'm not gonna have a lot of time, like
May 2nd.
30 seconds.
Oh, before you're saying?
Yeah, yes, all the tech.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be a remote, quick meeting also to make this vote, you know what I mean? So we'll figure that out. Did you have a chance to look at the meeting minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to accept them as written.
Second,
Any discussion?
You got to do roll call because Kathy's on the line.
All right, all those in favor? Dan?
Aye.
Barry, got a roll, right?
Michael Mandalia, aye.
Got it,
Kathy?
Kathy Schofield, I.
Lisa, aye. All right. So we can look at the other, motions for the town meeting or possible motions. Do you have that? One of the motions is dividing the money up. And the total, it's an estimate because we're, planning for the FY '26 funds that will be coming in. So, I used this year's figures and came up with around $655,000. And then dividing it the way we usually do with 10% in the three categories that we have to put 10% in, 5% for administration and then 65% for the budget reserve. So someone want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, Dan?
Aye.
Barry, got a roll, right?
Mike A, aye.
Got it, aye.
Kathy?
Schofield, I.
Laser eye, okay. The next one is the police station debt, which is $131,400, with $60,000 coming out of the CPA Historic Preservation Account, $74,400 coming out of the CPA Budget Reserve. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Right, all those in favor?
Dan, aye.
Mike A, aye.
Got it, aye.
Kathy?
Schofield, I.
Laser eye, okay. The next one is, the funding, partial funding of the planners, the Mendon planner salary, where they would be putting, the part-time affordable housing coordinator, which would make a lot of sense. When Jack was doing that, it was super helpful, so, having this position pick up those, tasks would be really beneficial to the town. And so 10 hours a week worked out to about $15,000.
Is that, did you share that with Jeremy, that number? 15?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Mhm. Yeah.
So this is a portion of Dylan's
Salary.
pay now that we're
Definitions,
full time.
so.
Yeah, it's about, 10 hours a week.
And then specific focus on housing, and then we're not gonna bother with the shared thing anymore.
No, yeah, we're not doing that, yeah. I mean, I think CMRPC is very helpful on specific projects, but not the affordable housing coordinator, just this, they were spread too thin and it just didn't work out.
Well, I know Dylan's been really, I think have somebody that's here,
Yeah,
can put the time in.
well, and also Dylan's been spreading herself between Uxbridge and Mendon, and so now she can focus on Mendon. And even if you're doing the same kind of hours, it's just hard to, be in two places at the same time, so.
Make a motion to approve those funds.
Second,
Any discussion?
yeah, as long as we get a year-end report on what he was doing. So we can, I think the term is quantify what he's doing, and are we getting our bang for the buck,
Mhm.
pretty much.
It has to be on the town report anyway, annual report. Right? Each department.
Well, I think we had Bill come in
She's
and
gonna be the
present,
plan.
happen, what's the status of projects. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, in the annual, town meeting report, or, we've never had a page for affordable housing, so that might be a nice idea, to do that.
I'd rather roll it in the planners.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. This role is, because Jack's retiring, what he did for the town with the planning board and such, this role, Dylan,
So just have
doing it and just have that.
Exactly.
That makes sense. All right, any more discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Dan, aye.
I roll the rest.
Mike A, I,
Got it,
Schofield, I.
These are right. Okay, and then the last one is the school, which we already talked about, the fields, and I think we're, in support on that. And so on the CPC bylaw, we kind of talked about that at the last meeting. Discuss capital planning committee. Oh, that's just about the fields.
And that was, whether or not representative, we actually have a capital planning committee.
Oh, okay. Do you
now.
want to talk about that? Okay.
Yeah, well, so we've had a working group for capital planning in the last year, 2 cycles. We actually have a quorum, it's been appointed, so we have the planning committee has been formed. And one of the things that working group talked about was having a representative from the this committee act on it, since it's a source of funding from some capital projects. It's not required, it's optional. Dan served in that role, if you will, for the working group. So the question was, does this committee feel a need for representation within the capital planning committee? It's, and if not, that's fine. There's 2 open positions and they'll be at large, and we'll look for other folks to fill them. And if we do think so, does anyone want to volunteer to be that?
That's the question. I do think that the CPC has been really open to helping fund projects that we can.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I need to be on the committee, that's for sure. So I don't know, does anybody else want to be on the committee? Yeah, I have a feeling.
I get
That's fine, enough
Yeah.
committees.
I had wondered if, and whatever happens, if this facilities things go through, it would make sense, either as a voting member or just as an ex officio member.
Mhm.
I don't know how much time I have for meetings, that's the only downside.
That's fine. And I say no.
If they can meet during the day, that was much more approachable.
I'm gonna remain the liaison in the select board, so, I can keep this committee informed.
yeah, I don't think this committee should be part of the planning, because it's more than, it's the planning committee where the town's going, whether it's property or et cetera,
It seemed to me like you'd go to that committee and, maybe your funding source is CPA, and maybe you've talked to us, or maybe you haven't. But they're kind of like in parallel.
And I think having the select board representative is really helpful on the committee and with FinCom, so.
Done.
Yeah,
Moving
I
on.
think, okay, we can. So on the seat, I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so this is the CPA bylaw. And I added one thing in here is we assigned all 7 positions to specific, they have to be on other committees, parks, land use, select board. And we don't have any member at large positions, which would be nice to have. But then we don't want to add 1 position and have it be 8, because then, voting would be difficult. And what we did in the land use committee is we added an alternate member. And it's been really helpful to get, have quorums. That person tends to come to the meeting and be in the discussion and everything. And also it gives an opportunity for someone that's not on a committee to be, one of these assigned committees to be on the community preservation committee. So. What do you think about that?
That's fine by me. Well, the
Having an
mayor,
alternate member?
Yeah,
I think that's fine. I've got something I don't agree with in old section 6, but
okay.
let's get through that.
All right, and then I just added in the red, when it says for the community to be studying the possible, possibilities and resources of the town regarding community preservation. I just added the land use committee, select board, park commission, just because those are, committees that are eligible for CPA funds, so I added that.
I think just with alternate too, it helps if there's potential conflicts that have come up where someone has a conflict of interest and the alternate.
Oh, true, that's a
participates, so
good
you're not
point,
short a member.
that's a good point.
And then, if there's a way to leverage somebody from this housing group that could get involved, that would be helpful, I think.
What's the housing group?
The used to, because you were saying earlier, like they're trying to form like a working group for housing, like maybe
Oh, yeah.
that ends up potentially being the alternate.
Mhm.
We have Peter, but.
And then, that's all I had. What do you have? Number 6, effective
At
date?
the end of it, should any appointing authority fail to make their appointment within the allotted time, the town moderator shall make that appointment. I don't think the town moderator,
Well, that's kind of,
whether it's the present one or future one or previous one,
that is
I think
kind
it
of
should
a
be
funny
the
one.
board, I think it should be the board of selectmen. If
Yeah,
the board of selectmen are the.
Yeah, in this town, the moderator doesn't appoint anything.
I
So I
don't know.
think.
Just thinking about that, I don't even.
In other towns, they do, I don't know if you know that, in some towns, the moderator does like everything.
All right, Bill,
Yeah,
I think
Oh,
Milford
interesting.
appoints the finance committee,
yeah,
on the recommendation of the town moderator.
interesting.
All right, that's interesting.
Are you gonna submit this or approach the bylaw review committee now?
I am. I mean, I think this one would be easy enough to get in. The land use committee, we need to work on that more, but, this one's pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty much, the most important one is the alternate member.
Yeah. So, okay. So I
Everything
think,
else is basically boilerplate.
right.
So you were saying the town meeting's May 2nd, Friday?
So,
The annual town meeting is on what, May 2nd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think about having a meeting on April 29th, Tuesday? And forgoing the meeting on the 6th of May? It's 4 weeks now.
Yeah, it was like-
I'm not gonna be around in May, I'll be in Myrtle Beach.
yeah, no,
We're supposed to have a meeting on the 29th.
So May 6th is also proposed for candidates night, so if we could meet the week earlier, that might benefit a lot of things.
So April 29th, that's a what, oh, Tuesday?
Yes.
Just bump it a week earlier.
Let's plan on that, April 29th at 7:30.
Are you, Kathy, does that work for you too? Hopefully.
Does that work for you, Kathy? The 29th?
Yeah, sorry, I was just putting it in my calendar. Yes, it does.
Okay.
All set.
And then the CPA plan, Mike, did a chunk of that. I'm working on it, but, I need to pull it together more before we go through it, so we'll do that at another meeting. And that's really all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
But
All right,
motion adjourned.
Second,
all those in favor?
Dan, aye.
I roll the right.
Amanda Lear, aye.
Goddard?
Got it, sorry.
Schofield, aye.
Okay, Mays, all right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good night.
Everyone, good night.
Take it easy.
Have a good night.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Okay.
Let me just.